everybody, and welcome to the F Your Fears podcast. I am your host, Ashley Monique Menard.
Ooh, who's on the show today? Well, I'll give you a couple of guesses. She is currently nominated for a Daytime Emmy for her work on the TV show Doomsday. Yes. Oh my God, I can't wait. She's also a Canadian who's been living in Los Angeles for the past, 6 years, however long she's been there. She used to live in New York before that, and she's made some incredible films. She's a female filmmaker, and she's going to teach us so much today about her journey. So strap in and get ready for this episode today with Sonja O'Hara. She's a beauty. I love her. Beautiful inside and out and a wealth of information. So get ready for that. But before we do, let's go ahead and dive in for a little something inspirational for today, shall we? So our inspiration for today comes to us from the guided book, I'm Fucking Radiant. It's a journal. It teaches you stuff about yourself by asking you the right questions. So what you see is what you fucking get, right? Yeah. So what I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to list 5 people who are great influences on you. So go ahead and think about that. Who are 5 people who are incredible influences on you? And how do they help you become a badass? How do they help you become wonderful? How do they help you become fan-fucking-tastic and just well-rounded? Who are 5 people who are huge inspirations to you in your life? Think about who those 5 people are and write down why. What does that person possess that inspires you? So make your list. Who's going to be on your list? I'll make my list. Who inspires you? Who inspires you? Who inspires you? Did you write your 5 people down? Did you write anyone down? So what'd you come up with? Go ahead and put in the comments. Let me know who you liked, because I'm curious, who inspires you? And maybe it's someone that I've never heard of, and I can check out their work and then become inspired. So if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Best way for people to be able to see about this show is by liking, subscribing, and sharing. So if you're a fan, let us know. If you're listening to us over on the Apple Podcast, go ahead and review the show. Leave a rating. Let us know that you liked what you're doing. So why not? Thank you so much for being here. And let's go ahead and bring Sonja out. I love Sonja. She's got such an incredible spirit. And let's learn more, because this bitch knows a lot. So let's do it. Is your current headshot a little outdated? Is it in black and white? Head over to Queen Self Tape and get yourself some new headshots. Gabe Awan's got affordable prices and can also help you with self-tapes. www.queenselftape.com.
Everyone out there, ladies, gentlemen, all of you, my friends, Sonja O'Hara is here. She's a writer, she's an actor, she's a director, she's a producer, she's a badass.
Yeah.
She's magic. She's magic, you guys. She really is. Sonja, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I feel all the same things about you, Ashley. I'm losing my microphone, but I'm feeling like you've been one of those people that the very first day that I met you, I think it was about 10 years ago, probably.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
I remembered you just came in with all of this energy, and you were just so fiery and spunky, and you were talking about just taking New York by storm.
Yeah.
And you did, you know?
And you, the exact same thing. I mean, you weren't smoking a cigarette, but you had that vibe of I just came from Canada and I'm doing this shit. Yeah, I'll seat you in a second, ma'am. Anyway, I got an audition in about 15. I know I'm supposed to be working, but I'm going to leave. You had that kind of vibe. And I was who is this person?
I was very bad at that job.
But you were perfect to me. Because you knew what was most important for you, and it was acting, and you were like, I'm just here to seat people while I'm here, and then I'm out.
And I didn't want to stand up. I remembered there was the hostess was supposed to stand and look cute, and I was always bringing a bar stool, and moving it over and sitting and reclining and learning lines, and
yes.
Zero shits about what I should have been doing. So I'm glad.
Zero shits. And the coolest thing is that at the time when all of that was happening, you were just wrapping up a picture. You were in post, I want to say.
Yeah, I think at that time when I first met you, it was still an idea. And then
Oh,
during that period, I was actively in writing classes and obsessing over a script. And then I think the following summer, I went and shot the movie, and it took some time. And then I felt like the next time I saw you, I was like, come to the premiere.
yeah.
And it was like done. So
Yeah.
it felt like it moved kind of quickly. But in reality, I feel like, it was tough.
Yeah. Well, I remember thinking it was so inspirational because at the time, I mean, this was 10 years ago, so I was like 25 and you were 4. And and I remember thinking Sonja's going to make her own stuff? How the fuck do you do that? Like what? It was such a like I knew people were making their own theater. Like I very much knew that. But the idea of independent filmmaking being a realistic possibility for someone that I knew, like you were one of those first people in my life that I kind of saw had this idea, literally nurtured it, grew it, and then it became this thing. And you've continued to grow your craft each and every single time, and just the work that's coming out of you is just beautiful.
Thank you. It was
welcome.
kind of insane because at that point, I had never made a short or anything else. I just jumped in and made like a feature film. And now in hindsight, that seems absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But at the time, I didn't know what I didn't know. So it was great. And I was good at getting people that were further along in their careers than I was at that point to share my vision and agree to sort of jump on. And then it gave me sort of the legitimacy because I was linked to people that were ahead of me to have other people buy on until it became a real movie. But it was something where I just think about like, I had chutzpah, but I lacked so much just like real life, like hands-on skills from doing this stuff. And years later, now that I'm making stuff and I feel far more secure about who I am as an artist and I've made enough films that like I really know what I'm doing. At that time when I look back, I'm like, I was insane. Like that was insane.
I could only imagine because at the time it seemed super insane. And so for everyone out there, the picture that we're talking about is Ovum.
Yes.
Right? Would you like to tell everyone what it's about?
Absolutely, yeah. Ovum was a feature film about a young actress who would do anything for a part, who ends up giving up the ultimate part of herself when she sells her eggs, and to prepare for a movie. And it was like very meta because I funded that movie by selling my own eggs, and like I made a lot of money selling my eggs during that period to make that movie.
Yeah.
And it funded a huge chunk of it. And then we cut together a trailer for the movie, put it on social media. And then an investor reached out and was like, this is really good. I want to put in enough funds to finish your movie. And that was completely unexpected. And I just thought I was going to be doing all of this out of pocket.
Yeah.
And we did it very, very affordably, like considering for like an indie film, but it's still more money than a broke young actress, had to give. So thank God for my eggs and that people wanted them.
So for all the girls out there, I mean, I think we've all picked up a backstage at some moment in our life. And I love that you have that in the actual movie.
Yes.
Because we've all been in, I think every woman that thinks, I just so many women that I know have had this conversation about selling their eggs to be able to further
you move to New York, you open a backstage, and it like adds, egg donors wanted. Yeah. And it's next to acting roles for, crappy off Broadway theater. And you're like, wow, this play would pay me $75 for 6 months. And this other thing is offering me $10,000 to sell my eggs. Like this seems obscene.
Yeah.
But I did it, made a bunch of money for the movie. Yeah. And then that movie got picked up and then sort of gave me a career. So I'm incredibly grateful that I risked everything on it. It seemed insane at the time, but like that's why I'm always telling people, make your movie. Like don't sit around and talk about it, just do it, because it's going to be flawed and you know, but all of the things that make it now, when I look at it from a technical perspective, everything that makes it kind of quirky or imperfect made it perfect for that story I was telling, because it was a quirky, imperfect story, you know, so it didn't need to be as polished or whatever as my work now, like as I'm trying to now, you know?
Of course.
Yeah. So total learning curve, but
Oh
yeah.
my God. Okay. So Sonja, we're going to back up a minute.
Yes. Yeah.
Where were you born?
A small fishing village in Nova Scotia, Canada.
Fishing village.
Yes. Very small.
The whole picture. Okay.
Yes, it's very like ingenue moves to New York. But
oh my God, I love it. It is so much. I love it. It is so good.
very small place. Like it's lovely. They come and shoot movies in Nova Scotia and pretend that the city of Halifax is Boston, because it has like a collegiate look. But this fishing village, Sambro, is gorgeous and untouched and has looked the same for hundreds of years.
Wow.
And by 8th grade, a chunk of my people in my class had dropped out to fish professionally, and they made serious money. It wasn't like this like quaint rustic thing. Like these dudes were like lobster fishermen who were like making all the money and were sort of like the rock stars of my tiny little village.
Where are they now?
A lot of them, by the time they got to their early 30s, looked terrible. Some of them look really washed up. They look like decades older because of life on the sea. Yeah. Like
they went back in time.
Yes. They look like weathered and exhausted. Yeah. But they're like wealthy, you know? So, and a lot of them all, you know, got married and had children at an early age. And so it's crazy. But there were the Henneberries and the Greys. And like a chunk of this community were Henneberries or the Greys, and they like ruled the town. And my family hadn't been there for a million years, so we were like the outsiders.
Oh, wow.
And I'm a child of 2 teachers who taught languages. And like even at like 10 years old, in the like, you know, elementary school yearbook, I had that I wanted to be a working actor on stage and screen.
And I think it's your specificity that has made you come so far in life. Because like, I just made the mistake by saying an actor. I really should have inserted working.
Right.
Of stage and screen.
I don't know where I got that. Right. Like, I don't know how, like, that all...
Are you Liza Minnelli?
I know.
Like, that's like, so specific.
Right. Future EGOT winner. Like, it's like so bizarre. But yeah, and then as soon as I could get out of that village and get to New York, like I moved to New York at 17 to go to acting school.
Okay. And where'd you go?
And the New York Conservatory for Dramatic Arts, and then Marymount, Manhattan.
Nice.
It was all like, you know, you move there and it's the whole, you're like, I'm in fame. But then you get there and you realize that you're not special. Yeah. And that, you know, no one really cares. And if you're the most talented kid in your high school, you're probably like the least talented person in your class at acting school. And I was younger than everyone else because I'd gotten there at 17 and people were in their like early to mid 20s. And I felt like this giant difference in their ability and confidence. And I felt like I was working really hard just to keep up. And the harder I worked, the more I sort of had the reputation of being like too eager and wanting it too much. And at that point I was still going by my whole first name, which is Sonja Carey. And people called me very scary Sonja Carey because I just like wanted it so bad. You know, when you're just like so hungry and so passionate that it's almost off-putting. It's almost like you're like, hire me.
Yeah. Very Rachel Berry-esque.
Yes. Yeah. And then you chill the fuck out. But it took me making my own work probably to chill out.
Well, of course. I mean, when you're 17.
Yeah.
Like, when you're 17, you're going to be over the moon about something you're super into no matter what. And then you up the stakes of being in a different country. And being far away from home and trying to prove to everyone that you're interesting because that's literally what your job is.
Yes.
So it's completely understandable. And I think a lot of people can relate with that.
Yeah.
Because we get to theater.
No.
Or you do fit in with like a couple people.
Yes. Yeah. I have my outcasts, you know?
Yeah.
I didn't yet have the confidence and I didn't match what I thought my type was in my head. Like, you know, you come to acting
What do you think
school.
your type was?
I mean, I thought I was this like troubled teen. That was like what I thought I was. Like, I thought I was like dark,
Evan Rachel Wood.
Brooding. Yes, I thought I was Evan Rachel Wood.
Okay.
But then I was probably more like early Emma Stone and Superbad. Like really like
I see that with you.
dorky and funny and like, but like not what I wanted. Like I wanted to be like serious. And this wasn't like Emma Stone of Birdman, right? Like this was when she was doing Easy A and she's like cute and eager and like trying really hard. And that was more my energy, but I just wanted to be, you know, baby Meryl Streep like everyone else. And I wasn't getting those roles. And, you know, I was struggling with just trying to, you know, like there was a class at my acting school where they sent the people that were quote unquote the high achievers or the best, and they called them the racehorses. And
shit.
I didn't get in the racehorse class. And I remembered being devastated, you know? Yeah.
Of course. Of course.
And, you know, and those are the things that like shape you. But I am so glad that I didn't have that sort of early success where I ever felt like, oh my God, like I'm killing it. Because then I think people plateau or they get complacent. And instead I had this like, I'm going to do anything to make it and I'm going to work so much harder.
Yeah.
And that led me to be like, well, I'm going to make my own feature film to make it. So I'm so glad that I wasn't like the whiz kid.
I totally agree with that. Because I've thought about that. I'm like, how come it hasn't clicked? Like, why hasn't it clicked? Like, I think of that. I think we all think of that. Like,
all the time.
What is it? And so I really sold it to myself that if it did click early on, I'd be dead because I'd have just overdosed on cocaine.
Honestly,
if I got it when I was young, I'd be as thin as you, but dead. Like I would have just snorted the world and just died.
I mean, I had this
happy that didn't happen.
I'm so glad it didn't happen. But I had the same thing. Like I had this like, I think I'd read too many like postcards from the Edge and like things where I had this like really tragic, glamorous idea in my head. Like I remembered telling everyone that my ultimate fantasy is that I would die on stage performing and then an anvil would fall on my head and that I would win a Tony for my own death. Like I was like the most extra dramatic human, like all of it. Like my motto was act or die. And all of my
like
journals.
Write this down. It's so good.
In my journals at the time, I was like, act or die, like writing all over these things. I was just so much. I was exhausting. When I look back at that person, God. I have such love for like little dorky, eager, anxious Sonja, you know?
She wanted it.
So badly. But I made the mistake at that time of thinking, because I felt like I wanted that part more than everyone else, I thought that was something that made me more qualified. Where now I see that the desire to want something has zero correlation for being fit for the thing. I, as a director, cast the actor that's the most right for the part. It's not who wants it most. Often the actor I'm casting gives the least fucks, but they're just the most right for it. And that serves the material. And it's not who's like, I die for this part. And it seems kind of unfair, but it took me a long time to realize that, like, you know, just because you're the most passionate doesn't mean you're, you know, gonna get the part or that you should get the part.
Totally. So early on, you had some disappointment early on. When you had that disappointment, because this is like, as a performer, we have the ups, we have the downs, we have the in-betweens, we have fucking trying to climb to get one of those highs again. How do you bounce back? What kind of things do you do for yourself to help Sonja bounce back after a low? So like, let's say you've gone out for a few things, just didn't work out. You feel like you're going high, but instead it goes low. How do you jumpstart your battery to get back up?
My friend Mark St. Cyr, who is now like an actual Disney star on High School Musical, he was somebody who came up in my show Doomsday that I cast and became one of my best friends. Cool. He saw me in the periods where I would get a colossal disappointment, and he would call it Mope Fest, because I let myself truly grieve for 24 hours. Like I'm talking like the full shebang. Like I will like curl up in bed with like blankets and eat ice cream and indulge in my vices and feel dramatic and awful and terrible. And then after 24 hours, it's banished. I tell myself, you're not allowed to mope. It is done. You gave into it fully. And now you must jump into the next opportunity. Because I think that if you don't let yourself sort of grieve the losses, then you can't really celebrate the wins when they come either. So I like to anytime I get anything, even if it's just like a callback or I get good responses from like an exec on a script I wrote, I celebrate it. And even the smallest good things I like celebrate and act like they're great. And when terrible things happen, I let myself acknowledge that really hurt and that really sucked. And just let myself grieve it and then move on and know that no one colossal disaster can derail me, that there will always be another part and another project that I'm going to create and another opportunity, and they're infinite, and that you just keep going, and that I will just never quit no matter what. Like that became like my religion.
That's so good.
You can't quit. Yeah.
You can't quit. You can't quit.
It's just not an option, you know?
No. Unless it feels like it's the option and you're like, I think I need to move on to something else. You can always come back to acting.
Yes.
So if you feel like I just can't right now, then don't get the fuck out. Go
100%.
party somewhere else. But I 100% with you, Tara. Yeah.
So there are times, for me, acting class over the years, you're supposed to, as a working actor, always come back to class and back to your method. There are times that for whatever reason, acting class is more painful to me than auditioning or being an actor in the world. I don't know. I turn back into little, very scary Sonja Carey in acting classes, and I become really self-loathing. And there are times that I have to just take breaks from acting class and know that my self-care is saying that I know I should be in class, but I'm not going to be, and that is okay.
Yeah.
And I have to sometimes just take a step away with things like that. But I know that I'm never going to quit. But there are times that you're like, I'm going to focus on this screenplay. I'm not going to focus on trying to be cast in somebody else's thing. Because I do think that's inherently unhealthy if you're just constantly trying to be enough for someone else, you know?
Totes. So speaking of writing, okay.
Yes.
Did you write when you were a kid? When did writing kind of come up?
I was always very creative and always attempting to write, but I didn't have the discipline. When I hear about other people that were mounting 3-act plays for their aunts and uncles when they were children, that wasn't me.
Yeah.
But by high school, I did write a really melodramatic one-woman show called Cuts about a teenage cutter. And I did, that was the first thing that I had written.
Yeah.
That, was this play that I cared deeply about.
So you're 13, you write this thing. What was it like? Because I'm sure, was mom yo, what the fuck?
I think she was a little bit because it dealt with lesbianism and teenage pregnancy and cutting.
Okay.
And I was pretty well behaved and I wasn't really indulging in any of these things. So I think she was like, wow, Sonja's very theatrical. I think that was more sort of the understanding of it. At around that time, I did come out to my mother as bi. So I think she saw, the through line of me writing about lesbians. But besides that, I wasn't, I might have had some fleeting forays into eating disorders, but which is, obviously not great, but I wasn't ever a cutter or I wasn't doing serious bodily harm to myself.
Which is good, which is great. I guess my next question is, so when that came out, because it seems like it was pretty heavy, what was the reception like with the audience, and how did that first foray kind of happen? Because I mean, you're putting something super emotional out there, and
I think that I didn't get as far with it as all of that. I did a play and then I workshopped scenes in some classes I was in, and I got a really good response to my writing. And I didn't end up ever doing a full performance of Cuts. I just workshopped bits of it. And then when I moved to New York, I started writing in journals obsessively because I just felt like I wanted to catalog everything that was happening to me. But I didn't try to really write a full thing until I moved to LA at 20 and I started to write my first screenplay. But at that point, I didn't yet have the structure. As the child of teachers, I long for formal education, and I didn't yet have the skills of knowing how to break down a screenplay and make it like a doable thing. Like I just didn't have that. And when I moved back to New York at 23, I signed up for a writing class, and the teacher was teaching at NYU, but I couldn't afford the NYU classes. But I saw that he was also teaching at Gotham Writers Workshop.
Love Gotham. Love Gotham.
Is the best.
The best.
Shout out to Gotham.
I
can't say enough good things. And that teacher, Jason Greif, became my mentor. I showed up to the screenwriting class over the summer, and I was with like 12 people who didn't want to be there, that I felt like their parents said, like, you have to take a class this summer. And they all hated it. And I just was like Hermione Granger with my hand up like every 2 seconds and like would bring in pages and pages of bad material to class.
Yeah.
And this teacher, I said on the very first day of the very first screenwriting thing, I have never written a screenplay before, but by the end of this class, I am going to have a feature-length screenplay that I will make into a movie and I will star in and produce it. And my teacher's looking at me like, oh, that's very ambitious, but I don't believe that this could possibly happen. And then I did it. So that was something where I wrote a lot of shitty pages until something was better. And I just kept on reworking it until something was authentic. And I don't know, it was just trial by fire.
Totally.
And that was the first thing I'd ever really written. And then I still thought, because Ovum was so meta about being an actor in New York and selling eggs and feminism and eugenics and all of these very personal things I was thinking about during this period of time, I thought that I wouldn't have any other ideas and that I was a one-trick pony and that this was all I could come up with.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that there was more. And then as soon as I was done that movie, I was like, I'm never making another movie as like a writer. And then I immediately wrote another pilot and went and shot that. And that was my pilot, Doomsday. And I think that was more the thing that gave me a career, because that was the thing that won a lot of festivals and then ultimately led with me to sign with WME and Management 360. It all came out of this pilot. The first thing gave me like some awards, but it was the second thing that got me representation at like that sort of insane high level.
And for those of you who don't know what the that's William Morris Agency.
Yes. Yes.
Sonja's with William Morris Agency. One degree. So Doomsday's out. You feel the confidence.
Yes.
You sign with people, so you feel also the as well the validation.
Yes.
And having someone behind you of, we know your name. We're going to send you out.
Yes. And I had wanted to be with that agency since I was 15 years old, because I had grown up. My mother is a French teacher, and Ellen Page from Juno's mother is a French teacher. And I would see Ellen Page at auditions when I was 10, 11 years old. And obviously she was getting them and she deserved those parts and was amazing. But I would see her and I was inspired. And she got a film when we were like 15, 16 years old that went to Sundance, and she signed with the William Morris Agency. And I remember that became the dream, Sundance and William Morris. Like it was amazing how inspirational her career trajectory was. Like maybe if she hadn't been this dark little indie darling, that wouldn't have become my goal. Like maybe if I'd grown up with like Emma Roberts instead of Emma Stone, I would have a very different career. I mean, it might have been a very different career.
So interesting how that happens. So, okay. So then you kind of like move into this new realm after that of being able to pitch.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
okay.
Suddenly.
So let's break that down for those people out there that don't know what the hell's pitch. I've heard of it. Like, what is pitching?
Sure. It's where I'll be sent to various production companies. Like this year alone, I've pitched HBO and HBO Max and Netflix and Hulu and Amazon and everyone. Like it's been kind of an insane year for pitches. But it will start with my agents will set up an appointment and then they'll send over my materials, which is largely like a pitch deck. And sometimes it's a writing sample, but usually it will be the pilot episode of my show Doomsday, and then like a little bio about like any awards and stuff that I've won. And then I'll go in there, and lately it's all Zoom, but it used to be in physical offices of physical places. And I'll go in there, and in the past I was much more informal with my pitches and was much more conversational like this.
Yeah.
But with this last show, I was paired with with the executive producer of the HBO show Ballers. So I've been writing with somebody who's like a big deal.
Baller.
Yeah, he's a literal baller, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And he also was one of the major people behind Entourage and How to Make It in America.
Wow.
So he's somebody who has like that cachet.
Yeah. And
we'll come in, we'll have like a really formal style pitch where at first you're saying, why you, why now, right? So you're really like addressing those network execs and talking about why you're the right person to tell this story and why they need to buy this show from you, as opposed to all the other talented young writers that are out there.
Yeah.
And then I will guide them into like what our pilot episode is like, who are the characters, what themes we're going through over this series, how many seasons we could see it being. And it's like a 40-minute, very polished sort of presentation.
Okay.
And that's something that that's really been what my summer was. It was learning to pitch like that and working with my team members, who's Cara Santana was the other writer on the show. And yeah, I would like work with them and we would prep it and then perform it. And I realized it was just like auditioning. It was really the same.
That's just what I was going to say. Yeah.
Right. It's acting really.
So what are you thinking you're going to do next?
A few things. I have, it's always so strange how things come and go, but I am attached to direct 2 upcoming feature films, which I'm excited about. One, we put out an offer this year, my first $1 million offer to an actor. And
oh my God, Sonja!
I was really excited.
Oh my God, you're legit! You guys,
it was like,
look at Sonja!
It was like people that I've grown up being like, I'm obsessed with that actor, and then you're suddenly putting out an offer and writing them like a letter.
Cool.
And that's
so cool.
So that's one movie, and I'm really excited about that, and I guess it will be announced semi-soon.
Cool.
And then I have another movie that is like a really smart, dark social commentary horror movie. Ooh. And that one I'm directing and also acting in.
Oh, awesome.
And that was like, and the lead in that is an actor that I had a big crush on growing up with that I can't say yet, but I'll tell you after this thing who it is. And I was
exciting.
Yeah. And that's fun. But both of those projects are ones that other people wrote that I was brought on as a director. And that's fun. And then I just finished post-production on an adaptation of a video game movie. And it's a popular PlayStation game called Root Letter. And I got to go to your home state of Louisiana to go film it. I was in Shreveport.
Oh, wow.
Summer shooting it. Yeah.
You went to the shittiest part of Louisiana.
You know, everyone says that. I have no idea.
It's so true. I mean, New Orleans is, awesome, but Lafayette, Louisiana is the bomb.com.
I've been there. I had an ex-boyfriend from Lafayette, and I've had Christmas there a couple times. So I love Lafayette.
It's such a good little spot. I mean, Shreveport, I feel like it's a different state, but
Shreveport is different, but it was really fun to like go to the South and make a movie.
Yeah.
And it was my first time coming onto a set where it was largely, my crew was men, they were all men. I mean, not entirely, but largely. And they were way older than me. And they're kind of looking at me, this like quirky little director girl. And like I felt like I really was misunderstood and underestimated until the crew started to know me and get to know what I was doing. But for the first while, I felt like they were all deferring to my cinematographer, Dan, because he's a man. And they would ask him questions instead of me. And that was really frustrating. But you get past
how'd you deal with that? Because I think that's a great learning moment for some of the ladies out there.
I think that at first I tried to be one of the guys and it wasn't right for me. And I'm somebody who's always in a floral sundress. It's just who I am. I'm a little bit bohemian.
Yes, it is.
For the first couple weeks, I remembered like buying pants, like literal pants. Like I felt like if I could just look the part of like the more like tomboy director that maybe they'd respect me.
Yeah.
But by like the end of week 2, I was back in my floral, just being my vibrant self. And before then I felt like they didn't quite understand that people have an idea that a director is this sort of like stern, manly, like there's just like this idea that we all have of like a male movie director. And that works for them. But like for me, I'm somebody who learns that my actors give me the best performances if they feel welcomed and supported and loved and cared for. And I want to have an environment where everyone feels like they're safe to fail and that there is ultimately no way to fail, that we're all creating something cool together. So I just had to like let go of this idea of how other people direct and just embrace my weird, whimsical ways. And then I felt like people then embraced me, but it took a little time of just, and there were a couple times that I would just have to call out dudes that said blatantly misogynistic things, not in like a dick way, but just shoot it down immediately. Not get too angry, but just be like, you have to just keep, and I just have to make my day and just, you can't really dwell on what other people are saying.
Yeah. Cause I mean, a guy will shoot something down. It's like, dude, don't fucking do that.
Yeah. Right.
Bro.
I had some people
chill the fuck out.
Directing and like us, assistant directors and stuff that would be like making suggestions when I'd be talking to my DP. There were a lot of too many voices. Like people would all be trying to chime in, and you're like, don't do that, and sort of shoot that down. But you get through it. We made a beautiful movie, and now that is in the process of being sent to distributors, and we'll see where it ends up. But
so exciting. So in life, when you feel fear start to kind of creep into your life, and I don't mean like a buffalo chasing you down.
Right.
I mean like just fear of the unknown, something you really want. So like self-sabotatory stuff, like fear.
Yeah.
When fear starts to creep in, what are the things that you do in order to face, combat, deal? Like, what's your bag?
I definitely deal with imposter syndrome all the time, especially because, that's
lots
really real. And once I got signed by like the biggest agency in Hollywood and the biggest management company, it became a thing for me where I started to feel like people might be saying Sonja's only doing it because she's a woman, and we're at a point in, where people are celebrating female creators and that it's a hot button thing. And I know that I worked really hard to earn that. And I have to like think to myself, I am enough. They're going to give these opportunities to somebody. Why not me? And I have to be okay with that. I also have to know that as long as I am consistently making material, and that means scripts that I'm writing for other people or myself or projects I'm hired to direct, as long as I'm making the kind of projects that I, Sonja, want to see, if I put that out into the world, at least it will matter to somebody. But if you try to pander and cater to the idea of what is popular or what you think other people will like, you can end up with something that no one likes that doesn't mean anything to anyone. So I just keep on thinking, is this something that I would have paid $15 to go and see at the Angelica alone on a Wednesday matinee? Like, it has to be something that I think is authentic and edgy and dark and provocative and cerebral and all the things I like. So I guess when in doubt, think like, is this good enough? Is this what I do? Do I think it's good? And then I think that sometimes the only way I can shut off the part of my brain that's like fearful and terrified is to just sit down on my laptop and write. If I have to write 5 pages that day, I just have to do it. Like, I just try not to analyze it too much and just do. And then, if you write 5 bad pages, you might be able to edit it down to 1 really good page.
Yeah.
So I just think like I have to write that shitty first draft, and then I can refine it and make it good.
Totally.
So it's sort of like a keep going thing. And then I have to ultimately tell myself that it doesn't, as much as I'm like, the work has to matter to me and that I think it's good enough, sometimes I have to think someone else is hiring me to do this and my opinion's irrelevant. Like, I just have to do the best I can do and send it to them. And that there are great painters. Like, didn't Monet want to destroy all his paintings? Like, I remember reading that. And like, it's kind of irrelevant what the artist thinks of their own work. It matters what, the world thinks. So it's like, it's like, I know those are contradictory things.
Totes. And even I was listening. I have a favorite podcast, which I've spoken about before. Hopefully they'll call me on to be a guest. It's called Smartless. The hosts are Will Arnett, Jason Bateman, and Sean Hayes. You know, they may hear of me. When I listened to their most recent episode of Melissa McCarthy, I might be next in line. No, but she said this really great thing. True. You never know. I could be the one listener that they talk to on the show. Anyway, so she said this really wonderful thing where if 100 people watch something, 70% of them are going to think it's funny.
Yeah.
20% aren't going to get it. Yep. And 10% are going to hate it.
Yes.
I love that.
I love that too. I mean, I think the idea that in order to actually make a splash, there are going to be people that loathe your thing and think you're a hack. Yeah. And that any movie that you or I think is our favorite movie in the world, it's somebody else's least favorite movie. Yeah. Some critic has panned the shit out of it and thinks it's terrible. Yeah. And like, I tell myself that all the time because I'll tell people, oh my God, I saw this thing that I loved. And other people are like, really? That thing? That's terrible. And I think it's game changing. Yeah. It's all subjective, you know?
Totally. And I think we lose track of that sometimes because we get so stuck in it. And it's kind of like one of those, I am doing a podcast. Excuse me. I think it's one of those things where like, you just gotta trust. Like you just gotta trust the process, trust what you're doing and, you know, do it. It's better to be done than perfect.
Yes. Yeah. So I just keep on making things and I just keep on moving forward. And there are some things I've done that have really other people have responded to. And there are other things I've done that I think are even stronger than those other things that no one really gave a shit about. And, you know, it's out of my control. I think there's so much about just being like, I will make this, put it out in the world. And then I am letting go of trying to control how this goes. And that's hard for me as a type A person, but you just have to do it. And, you know,
all right, well, let's time capsule this. Okay. Where are you going to be in 20 years? What do you think you'll be completing this day 20 years from now?
I think
then we can check back and see.
Yep. I'm going to be the showrunner of a prestige drama on HBO that I'm writing, directing, and acting on the show. I think that I will also be making really beautiful, bigger movies that, like, I would love to make a movie about, like, a starlet in like a sanitarium who gets like a lobotomy. Like I've just always wanted to write like things like that. And I've always seen myself, and it sounds grandiose, but having a glass house in the Hollywood Hills and
wearing a boho dress.
I know, wearing the big muumuu. Yeah. And I want to be making important movies and winning Oscars and and I know it's sometimes I'll say things and I'm like, it's impossible. But if at 15 you'd asked me, I would have said that by the time I was 30, I'd be signed by WME, and people would have said that's insane. So I think that when you say things and when you own your goals and you put them out there in the world, I don't know, I'm not that woo-woo and I don't know if it's manifesting or not, but I found that if I'm very specific about the things that I want, I end up getting to, I end up achieving them.
I'm manifesting it now.
Yes.
We'll put you next to Cher.
Sorry?
I said I'll put you next to my Cher candle.
Thank you.
Okay.
So that's the goal, really, to make personal, dark, beautiful movies that move people. And I have a script right now that I care about a lot. That's my sort of millennial version of Eternal Sunshine. And that's that I care most about. And I'm workshopping that script at the Sundance Directors Workshop right now. And it's just something that I'm excited about.
Sonja, I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
I am so excited. You just have such an original voice. You are just really fucking cool too. And like a kind person, but also like a badass. Like it's a mixture of all of them. So I'm just so excited you came to the podcast today and chatted with me.
Thank you for having me. Like, this was honestly the most fun. Like, you're so able to just let people be their authentic, weird selves. And there are lots of times that I'll do something like this and I feel like I'm having to like say sound bites and I'm very self-conscious. But for this, like, the time just flew by and you're just like this beacon of light, joy, and
the light's over there next to Cher. Well, I love you. I'm so excited. Where can people find you if you want to be found?
I am on Instagram at Sonja, Sonjak O'Hara.
Cool.
The same on Twitter and Facebook.
And it's so cool because I'm so grateful to BB Kings because I met so many incredibly talented people. And during those super shitty times, I never would have imagined that I'd flash forward to the future of me talking about people's careers and really just savoring who they are and being able to share them with my viewers. And I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Sonja, thank you so much for being here.
Such a pleasure.
What'd you think of the show? It was fun, right? If you have not subscribed, what are you waiting for? I mean, if you haven't subscribed and you're still here, it's kind of like a goodbye kiss. So why don't you just subscribe? And then we'll be able to see each other more often. You leave a comment, I'll respond. This little game can play on. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I thank you for listening. I hope you have an incredible day. Keep yourself inspired. Keep fighting against the fears that want to stop you from doing the things that you want to do. Why? Because you're worth it. You're amazing and you got this. So let's make some magic. Let's make some magic. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And we can make magic.